So now let us start with AWS S3, which is Amazon Simple Storage Service, the third and the last storage service that we are going to learn in AWS. All right, we already covered EFS and ABS. Okay, now it's time for the main service that is S3, which is globally used and it's a multi-purpose service that you can actually use for, right? So I have jotted few of the points that we should take care of, and before starting, these are things that we should actually know. Okay, so what actually S3 is? So S3 is just like a bucket where you actually store your objects. Now, what is an object? We already covered that an object can be anything. It can be a SQL file, it can be an image file, it can be a log file, it can be a video file. Anything can be considered as an object. So S3 is a object-based storage service, and S3 is a distributed data store architecture where the object can be stored in multiple locations, and minimum location is three in a specific region, right? Data can be stored in a bucket, which we covered already. A bucket is something like a flat of container where the objects are being stored. Okay, the maximum capacity of a single bucket is 5 terabyte. Okay, bucket ownership is non-transferable, meaning like if you are the owner of that specific bucket, you cannot transfer your ownership. Right. However, you can add the user through IAM. They can access the bucket, but you cannot transfer the ownership. Right. Okay. So also there is one more thing to notice, like only 100 buckets can be created per AWS account. Okay. And the main thing which makes S3 more unique is the bucket name which we are assigning it. It is basically unique across the globe, right? A same bucket name cannot be used with another one, right? If you have created a bucket name test 123, then you cannot use it until and unless that specific bucket has been deleted or it's filled, right? If a bucket is deleted, then the name becomes available and then you can use it for another thing, right? By default, bucket and its objects are private and default only to the ownership, to the owner of the bucket, right? So basically, in the coming video, we are going to demonstrate, we are going to upload an image and we are going to see what actually the behavior of S3 is, what is the actual default behavior is, right? We are going to demonstrate and check what the behavior of that specific image is with the private URL provided by S3 and the public URL S3, right? Okay. Now, why we should use S3, right? Why should we consider S3 over EBS and EFS and other storage types, right? Because it can be used for backup and storage. It is a very good option for disaster recovery. You can use it for archival. It can be used for application hosting. So basically, we are going to host an website, right? We can also host a media file, okay, and it can be also used for a hybrid cloud storage, right? Now let us cover S3 bucket sub resources, right? Now, sub resources meaning what are the few things that AWS bring onto our plate, right? So first thing is life cycle. We can decide the object's life cycle management. Now, what I mean by life cycle management is because like S3 provides you different sort of pricing for different sort of life cycle management. Now, let's say mm, you have a condition where you are accessing the data more frequently, right? So in which type of data, which type of category you should place it, right? And if the data is accessed very frequently, at that time, which option should you choose? And if the data is being accessed very rarely, right? And at that time, which option should you go for, right? Should it be glacier? Should it be standard? That we are going to cover in the coming video. But as of now, life cycle just means uh, the the journey traversed by the object stored in the S3, right? Website. So basically, the configuration, it holds the configuration related to the static website, which can be hosted on S3 bucket. Okay. Versioning. Now, what do I mean by versioning? So if you're someone who is coming from GitHub, then versioning, this word might be very much clear to you. Now, what versioning is basically it creates a snapshot of your existing object. When enabled the versioning, you can have the access to each and every state whenever you want to access it, right? Access control it is nothing but the bucket protocols, the bucket policies. Now, bucket name. It's basically into two parts, okay, as I mentioned earlier. So as you can see, it's the bucket region endpoint and followed by the bucket name. So here you can see HTTPS S3 EU West1 Amazon.com, that is the bucket region and the endpoint that has been given to us. And second, followed by the slash, that is my bucket, right? Which is a globally unique. Now, what are S3 objects? Okay, and let us understand more about S3 object and let's do a deep dive on it. Object is stored in S3 bucket, which ranges from 0 byte till 5 terabyte, as I mentioned earlier. Each object is stored and retrieved by a unique key. Okay, and object is S an object in an S3 is uniquely identified through the ID. Okay, and it is used for service endpoint. Basically bucket name, object key, and optional object versioning. Okay, and the last thing that we need to notice, you can grant S3 object permission to few of the following. That is, you can grant the permission to individual user, you can grant the permission to an AWS account, you can make the resource public, or you can allow it using the authenticated users, right? So only the users who have the authentication can access your objects, right? So that was all about S3. Few of the points that we covered today. In the following demonstration, we are actually going to see how we can actually upload an object, how we can access it through private link and public link, and how we can generate policies, right? So AWS S3, in this specific one, we are going to generate policies, right? So next video is going to be very important one. So yeah, that was all about this theoretical one. See you in the next demonstration.